Hello, boys and gals. Welcome to my first episode of my Python tutorial. In this tutorial, I'm basically going to go through the basics of Python programming, including Python syntax, how to use lists, if statements, loops, basically everything you need to, basically most of what you need to know in order to make a basic Python program. So let's start out. So what is Python? Python is a programming language like Java, C++, Java, no, not JavaScript. No, not JavaScript. Or HTML, though they're all programming languages, so I guess they do have a couple similarities. Now Python is basically like not a dumbed down version. It's a simpler version, which makes of like Java or like C#, C++, mostly because of its readability and its simplicity. It also runs pretty fast, so that makes it a pretty versatile programming language and a good introductory language. So let's start out with this language. All right, so let's print "Hello World." When you learn any program, it's programming language, it's good to know how to type "Hello World." So let's see what that outputs in the console. Hello World. In Python, you have to when you make a print statement, you have to make sure you use parentheses and a double quotation marks. So let's go down. Let's start defining variables. Now, you're going to have to define a lot of variables when you want to make a program. Let's say you want to make a Pythagorean theorem program. You're gonna have to define x and at least give the user an option to define x and y, and then based off of that, you need to do certain operations in order to get the third value. Get the third value. X squared plus y squared equals r squared, or a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Either one of those. So let's define our variables. Now, you could give any integer value to these singular letter variables. So let's say that x is equal to 5 and y is equal to 7, right? So what if we make a conditional statement, an if statement. Now, if statements basically you can do a lot with if statements. You could based on certain values that these variables have, you could check if this operation is true or not, or whether that is not true, false. So with this statement, basically, if x is less than y, then print true. If x is greater than y, print false. Let's see, what prints true because x is equal to 5. Let's say that x is equal to 25. This else statement will go to print false. Sorry about that. False. Now, this isn't it. I know. It's already pretty shocking, but you can do a lot more with these. Let's move on to let's do a little bit more. Let's say that you want to define. Let's say that let's define another variable. So let's say that. Okay. So let's make a variable named variable. Very creative. Variable 1. Let's set that equal to a string. A string with a value of, let's say 5. And let's say variable 2 is equal to 10, except in word format. All right. Now let's let's use these else statements with string values. So now it'll be a little bit different. So let's say if variable one is equal to 5, print true. Elif. You could also do else. Else print false. And we can see that it prints true. Now, okay, if variable. Okay, now let's see. Let's change variable 1 and just take a letter off. Variable 1 is equal to 5. So now let's see. It prints false. So basically, you could modify your if-else statements to do anything. So for example, if you're making like a game, right? If you go into one room, right? You one room, you have to make a statement that allows you to go into. You have to allow the player to choose that room, and if he chooses that room, then he gets another statement like the player move to that room. So, or else he does not. So let's do a little bit more. Let's define a list. Now I'll go more into detail on lists and in another episode, in the second episode, I believe. But let's just find a basic list. Let's make a list called options. Now, a list can be a single variable or a single letter variable, or even just a single statement. And I'll give y. Okay, let's see. Let's define z. Z is equal to. Make sure to use brackets. Let's define the list as 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4. We have four integer values. Now, the thing in Python is that in a list, the list value, not the actual letter, not the actual word or number, but like the list value. It goes from 0, 1, 2, 3. So let's see. Now let's see what I can do. Now what we can do here is we can print this list. Let's print z. Okay. And it just prints the whole list. Now, what we can do here is we can also print the list in a certain format. So let's define a for loop. A for loop is a type of loop, kind of like a while loop. Except actually it's better than a while loop. It basically can check through certain conditions, like so let's say for each item in Z, print this for like a certain condition. Let's say that within this we can define a local variable. Let's say numbers. For numbers in Z, print that plus numbers. Now let's see what this outputs. I'll go further into lists in a further lesson. Now let's define a function. Now Python has as like a whole library of different functions, like for like math functions or like data science functions that are already available that you can just call by importing them. But right now we're going to define our own function with this statement. Now we're going to define a function. Define. Let's call it def math. Now you can include a variable within these parentheses in order to make this function a little bit more complex. But let's keep it simple for now. Let's say that a is equal to 10, b and b is equal to 5. Now these are local variables, which means they don't exist outside of this function unless you call the function. So let's say a is equal to 10, b is equal to 5, right? Let's make this operation. Make sure to indent if a is greater than b, then print a times b. Else, actually let's do else, print a minus b. As you can see here, nothing happens until you call the function. So let's call the function math. Now the function is called. Let's see here. Oh, yeah. You have to make sure you call the function outside. Don't include it inside the function. Because that would make no sense. Okay, let's see what that puts. 50, because a is greater than b. Let's change the variables up a little bit. Let's say it's 50. Now it'll print. Actually, wait. Let's change it to 2. Let's change it to 2. It outputs -3, because if that's not true, then else this is true. Now, I believe that's all for today. In my next lesson, I will be going further into detail about lists, and introducing the idea of sets and dictionaries, while expanding the idea of loops. So thank you for attending this lesson, and I will see you in the next lesson. Thank you.